Hey everybody, Ryan Whedon here with this week's episode of Balayage Online. I am going to show you the money piece, and not just any money piece, the $1 million money piece. That's my signature money piece. How many times can I say money? Money, 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 money. Anyway, we're going to have fun today. I'm going to show you a very close-up look at how I achieve a very bright face frame. Here we go. Okay, we are ready to rock. I've got my beautiful model here. She doesn't talk a lot, but she seems very sweet. What we talked about earlier before we got the camera going is we're gonna add some fun brightness to her money piece here, and I told her I was gonna give her my signature $1 million piece. So what that means exactly, and of course she has like a warm, natural level 6 at this moment. You can see, I'll just give you the tour. We're not gonna be doing much around the back or the sides at this point, but you can see right now she's all one color, natural. And so the goal is to give her this real strong but natural looking money piece because she wants a nice soft grow out. So perfect for clients that want something bold but not like in your face, oh my gosh, it's stripy, it's out of control, how often do I have to get this touched up? Because a look like this that we're going to be giving her is something that's going to grow up very naturally. It's not going to require a lot of maintenance, and that's what a lot of our clients and guests love with balayage looks. So that's what we're going to be working on here today. Now, what I first do when I'm deciding on how large of a section to create is I'll take a look at the side of the head here. And she doesn't have any, she has a very, almost like a one length lob here. But you gotta think about, okay, if she parts it here, a little off to the left, always start with their natural part. Even if your client parts it in a million different ways, we all have predominantly one strong natural part. If somebody has like two natural parts, that's tricky. But the natural part, even if she parted it over here mostly and flipped it over, the hair, when she's not thinking about it, it's probably always gonna drop back to this area. So we do wanna take into account the entire hairline, but we also wanna make sure that when it does fall on that natural part, it's going to be beautiful every single time. So I'll take a look, I'll section it with the natural part, and then I'll take a look at the side profile here. Now, how much of this do we want to be blonde? Now keep in mind, even if we decide that we want this entire section here to be blonde, doesn't mean it's gonna be like a giant stripe all the way here, because we're gonna make sure it's blended, it's smooth, it's got a really nice transition point there. But we still wanna have a bold look in the front. Now for her, I'm thinking that we're going to have about a sizable section like so. So that would mean that if you look at the top of her head here, this whole section has to be accounted for. And I'm gonna show you exactly how we do this, and it's gonna be a series of back-to-back foils. Now you might say like, whoa, back-to-back foils? You're gonna go through that entire section with back-to-back foils? Yes, but the foil placement, the foil technique that we use is gonna be different from the start to finish. So bear with me, we're gonna get started. I'm gonna zoom in a little bit closer so you can see exactly what we're doing, but just keep in mind, this is the size of the section that we're doing. So now that we have this first row, this first section of hair here, we're gonna be slicing this. So it is important to think about, okay, can I fit a foil in here and make it even all the way around the hairline? And the answer is no, because it does scoop around and it's quite a large section, so we're not gonna get a foil to go evenly on the sides. We're gonna have some hair left out here and it's gonna create space. Our goal is to make it as seamless and as close to the scalp as possible because we are gonna do a slice. We are also gonna do probably a root shadow to make sure it's nice and smooth, but sometimes you don't have to. And we also know that on a human, this is a lot of hair here at the hairline, and most humans don't have this much dense hair at the hairline, so keep that in mind as well. But this is what we're dealing with, and this is a pretty good sized section here. So because we want to address the entire hairline, we want to make it as close to the scalp as possible, we're going to just split it down the middle and take it in 2 steps. So the first step here, we're going to take our foil, we're going to pop it underneath, we're going to press it with our fingers to make sure we get that foil nice and tight against the scalp. Make sure you hold the tension here. Obviously, we're not going to be pressing this against our client's face, but you do what you can. Clients don't care. They'll be okay with it. They can suffer for a few minutes while you get the perfect painting on there. So what I'm gonna do is I am gonna take my product, I'm gonna paint it on, work it up. I'm not gonna go all the way to the scalp just yet. I'm gonna release the hair now. Now I'm gonna lift this up and start to really saturate this section. I'm using a very soft bristled brush. This is a Frace brush. It's got those AccuSoft bristles. I've been using Frace for years now. I just love how soft the brushes are and how well they work. It's always good to enjoy what tools we use because it's gonna make us enjoy our job more and what we do. So make sure you get it, go back and forth, really saturate that section for an even lift. And then once you get most of the product on there, that's when I will usually use my thumb and my middle finger or forefinger and then feather it up. I'm not gonna go like this in on a horizontal, I'm going in on a slight diagonal / vertical. So I wanna make sure that it looks as natural as possible. Now once I get this on here, and in case you're wondering what I'm using, you can see it in the notes below, of course, but in this case I am using Wella Blondor Multi-Blonde, and I'm using 30 volume. I'm using 30, I would never really use 30 around the hairline, only because she's a mannequin, and so I'm amping it up a little bit, but normally I would probably use about 10 volume on this first foil. So then we are going to fold it up. Keep in mind where that hair ended, because you want to fold it right close to where that was. I'll fold it up once more softly, and then fold that in gently, and fold that in gently. And that is our first foil on that side. We're going to do the same thing on the opposite side, starting with a slice. As always, you want to take the section in your fingers, pull the tension tight, make sure you secure the foil underneath the section, and really lock it in there and hold the tension down to support the foil. All right, you're gonna wanna paint on the product about an inch or so below where you wanna bring the product up to, and make sure you paint all of the ends and the mid-lengths and make sure it's thoroughly saturated to get an even lift throughout. And then once you have all of the mid-lengths and ends covered, you're gonna start to bring it up in a wispy fashion and feather it up toward the scalp. Here you can see how I use the corner of the brush, and I like to use a soft bristled brush. In this case, I'm using the Frace, their traditional brush. And what I do is I paint it on and I use the corner to bring the product up very slowly. If I need more product, I will go back into my saturation point about an inch below, add more product, and then bring it up slowly so that I'm not taking excess product and pushing it too far past the foil that could create bleed marks and unwanted lines and warm spots. Fun fact here, the reason this video is closer up is because I am talking during it, but I filmed this entire section without sound on my video camera. So yay, the struggle is real. I'm gonna do another video on how to take videos and what to prepare for, and to make sure that you have a checklist to double check that you actually have sound that you are recording. Funny enough, before I did this part too, I filmed about 15-30 minutes of it without a battery. So it's very hard to shoot on your own. I'm gonna do a whole video on that. So anyway, I hope you'll enjoy it just the same. Moving on. Now that we have our first two slices in place, we're gonna move to the section behind it. And as I think I mentioned before, when you have a long hairline, a wide hairline, or a widow's peak, what you wanna do is you wanna take it in two sections because you're not gonna be able to get one slice to cover the entire hairline. So here, because her hairline is quite wide, we are taking it in two foils as we did. So we're gonna do the same thing directly behind it. We are doing back-to-back foils. So in this next section, we're gonna take baby fine slices once again. We're gonna break it up into two sections, split it down the middle, and we're going to basically do exactly what we did previously in the first row. Take time and really use tension to make sure that top section is as close and as flush to the scalp as possible. Once you get that first little bit of lightener on to the foil, it'll act like a glue, then you can release it, and then you can go ahead and apply the rest of the lightener to the mid-lengths and the ends, saturating it completely to get an even lift. Lift the foil up if you need to create a nice flat painting surface to apply the product toward the scalp. Every now and then you're going to create a little bit of an oopsie and put a little lightener in the wrong spot, so just make sure you address it right away. Don't wait till the end and then have to worry about root shadowing it or not. So make sure you just wipe it clean out of the way. If it's just a small glob, you can probably just do it with your finger. If it's a little bit more than that, then maybe wet the hair a little bit. Just make sure you address it before it creates any permanent warm spots. Once you're done with the first foil of the second row, just make sure you lock it out of the way so it doesn't move anywhere. Just like with any face framing piece or point of interest, those first couple of rows are the most important because that is what your client is going to see when they put their hair back, when they part their hair to the side. It's going to be staring at them every time they look in the mirror, so make sure it is perfect. This is a great shot of how thin the section of hair is. It's a very fine baby light slice because we want it to get a full saturation and look very, very natural, like it's growing straight out of the head. If it's any thicker than this, you're going to create more of a stripe and it's going to look a little artificial. We don't want that, and that's not what balayage is all about. You can see how the hair hangs off the foil here. You could use a longer foil, but I typically like to use slightly thicker textured foils like these Frace foils here. If it was a little bit longer, the foil might just become a little bit too heavy and a little bit too bulky. So I would rather just scoop up those ends, unless the hair is considerably longer, but in this case, it's perfect. Just scoop them up, saturate those end pieces, and then you have your foil that's not too heavy, and it's gonna be a perfect fit when you fold it up. Just like I did on the previous foils, make sure you apply all the product below where you want the product to end up by the scalp and address the scalp last. The reason I do that is because if I had done the scalp earlier and painted up there, there's a chance the foil is gonna move when I'm painting the mid-lengths and ends. So this way I can just finish off the top and fold it up and it's ready to rock. Notice how I'm feathering with the corner of the brush. So very little bit. What this is gonna do, it's going to create more of an even blow as opposed to taking the brush and using it in a horizontal way, because horizontal painting is going to create horizontal lines if you're not careful. So if you're using a vertical painting with the corner, just a little bit at a time, it might take a little bit longer, but that feathering will create a nice, soft, even blend. You'll see at the end. All right, we got the first two rows out of the way. And if you are dealing with somebody that has a really straight, small hairline there at the top, then this might only have been 2 foils. But if you're dealing with a widow's peak or a wider hairline, it's gonna take 4 foils to complete those first 2 rows. In our third row or third section, moving back in this triangle section here at the front, we are going to take a slightly scooped section, slightly U-shaped, but it's fine because we're going to be changing our technique here. We're going to go into a long tease, and by long tease, we're going to start toward the end and we're going to push away the layers, pushing about 2 inches at a time. Our goal with these long teases is to remove about 50% of the weight. And what the teasing does, if you've seen any of the other videos or if you've teased yourself, you know it's going to give you a built-in root. It's going to give you some more blend insurance so that the final result will have a blend. It's not going to take the brightness all the way to the scalp like the previous 2 rows of slices would. This is a wonderful technique for creating that lived-in look. Holding the hair with tension, we're going to apply the product in the same way, about 2 to 3 inches below where we want the lightener to end up toward the scalp. Once the lightener is holding the hair securely to the foil, you can drop it and then apply more product to complete and fully saturate those mid-lengths and ends that are hanging off the foil. It's my advice to oversaturate the product onto the hair because the product will dry a little bit, and the last thing you want to do is open up your foil and realize that you have uneven lift and you need to reapply the product. So let's try to address that right away. We're changing our technique at the top here. We're gonna feather up. We're gonna call it what I call a swipe up. We're gonna give it that little flick of the wrist. We're gonna swipe up to create the blend there. Instead of trying to fully saturate it by using the corner of the corner like we did on the slices, this little swipe is going to surface paint the very top section there from the saturation point up toward the teased area. What this is gonna do, it's gonna give us even more blend insurance. It's gonna create even a smoother lived-in look at the root. I often do this with teasing because the section is typically a little bit thicker up toward the teased section. So we also want to create a nice blended root when we comb the tease out. So to address that, we just want to give it a little bit of a kiss with that swiping effect. Directly behind the tease section, we're going to do the same thing. We're going to take a slightly thicker section this time, and we're going to tease it all the way up just like before. Our goal here with the teasing is to have it taper away from the face so that we have the brightest bits of hair at the hairline, and then the hair is going to taper off like it's cascading down toward the brighter ends. Like somebody has lived at the beach, and their hair is sun bleached and it's grown out a little bit and it just looks perfect, like she was born with it. That's the goal here. There are two ways to create a root that starts a little bit lower when you comb it out. And this is what we have to keep in mind as we move toward the back of this section, because we want to keep gently extending the root. Because if we tease it the same way, although the root might be blended, it's going to look a little bit stripy, a little bit liney, like an ombre. So we don't want that. We want it to look like it's dripping away from the face. So the best way to do that, there are two ways. One, increase the size of the section, and two, tease more. The problem with teasing too much is that you might only be adding blonde to the very, very end. So I would recommend doing a mixture of both by teasing it a little bit more and taking slightly thicker sections as we work our way back. All right, moving back. Okay, now we're looking at this. We've got, okay, how many rows? We've got 1 row, 2 rows, 3 rows, 4. That's 4 back-to-back rows, and we're not done yet. We're gonna go through this entire section, and there's still a pretty good amount left. But again, the technique that we're using here for this $1 million piece is going to make it bold, but look lived in and look very, very natural. And it's also going to give our balayage clients a very easy, low maintenance look. On this 5th section here, we're teasing it a little bit more, and it's also on a thicker section so that the root starts a little bit lower. Regardless, you always want to make sure that you can see through the section that you're painting. If the section is too thick and you're trying to get that full saturation down through the mid-lengths and the ends, if it's too thick, the problem is that you're not going to get even saturation. There's going to be some place within that section that you can't see that's going to create lines or uneven lift, and you're going to get that blue-orange look that we all love so much. Just kidding, we hate that. So we want to make sure that we have a section we can see through so we get full saturation and a bright, bright look. This is also the best way to get that balayage look, that ombre look, that perfect blend by limiting the amount of warmth we create. Really saturate that product in there, even though the section is very thin, and swipe up to get that nice wispy blend. Be sure to use a clean brush when you're working. It just makes the application process a lot easier, and you don't push product in places on accident where it shouldn't belong. But you can also see too, it's gonna happen. You're going to get some product into the teased sections, but that is quite all right, as long as there's no big globs that are gonna cause any weird colors or unwanted marks. It's okay. Just if you do get any globs in the wrong place in the teased area, just take your fingers and just wipe it all away. It's nothing to worry about. Here we are to the final section. Do we take this in 2 sections or 1? And I've decided that I'm going to take it in 1 section because it is fairly thin. The section is fairly small, and although it's quite an irregular section, it's more of a triangle section. As long as you tease it enough, you're gonna get a nice blend. Remember, it's all about what you're painting on that's gonna get that blend. So we wanna make sure that we can see through that section, make sure it's not too thick, and we're going to apply the foil right underneath, push the tease out of the way, and really, really saturate the hair. I left about 1 inch to 1.5 inches away from the root, away from the teased section here. So that way I'm gonna create even a root that starts a little bit further down, a blend that starts a little bit further down, so that we have that cascading brightness starting from the face and working its way toward the end. So we have that diagonal back motion of the hair, like she's lived at the beach forever. Lock that last foil in place, and oh my gosh, we are done with the $1 million piece. Let's take a quick look at what we did here. That was a lot of foils. So we've got 1 row with 2 foils, of course, 2 rows, 3 rows, 4, 5, and 6. 6 foils back to back using different techniques to create this $1 million piece. You guys excited? I am. Stay tuned for the final result. And here we are with the completed $1 million piece. What do you guys think? All right, obviously this is not the $1 million piece. Let's take a look at the $1 million piece. You ready? Here we go. Look at that. I am so thrilled how this came out because it's a mannequin, and look at this lift we got. I did not tone it, I did not root shadow it. I wanted to show you what the natural lift, what the natural technique looks like. And this is before anything else. So worst case scenario, this is what you're gonna get from the $1 million piece. And look at how blended it is. Look at how bright it is, how the sides have this boldness. Remember, we looked at the sides, we wanted to see what it would look like. So even doing something as simple like this on your client who might be overall brunette, give them a little teaser, give them a point of interest at the front. How cool and how pretty is this? When it cascades back, it just looks beautiful. What do you think? Look at this beautiful, beautiful, beautiful $1 million piece. You can see here, it's got really bright ends. I was stoked on this lift too because most mannequins don't lift that well. This is a pivot point mannequin. We can actually offer mob discounts on pivot point mannequins. Whoa, check the notes below. We'll have a link there. Make sure you take advantage of it. You can get a great discount on a lot of pivot point equipment. You can get this tripod as well. It's a pivot point tripod. It's awesome, super high quality, but look at this. So you can see here, we have got, it's not stripy, it's bold, but it is just beautiful. When you put it back here, look at this, the way it just cascades down, it's beautiful. Let me give you a closer look. She's super stoked. She was telling me earlier, she was talking my ear off. Of course now she's just very content. So I hope you enjoyed this week's lesson. I wanna see your work. Post it in our private Facebook group. If you're not a member yet, make sure you become a member. Our members only, Balayage Online Facebook group. You guys are awesome. Have a great week and good luck and kick some butt in the salon. And here we are with the finished product. We've got the $1 million, no. Yes, $1 million money piece. Millionaire, $1 million money piece. $1 million piece. $1 million piece.